Everyone likes to think they're special. When times are hard and it's almost impossible to see the light at the end of the tunnel, we hope that we'll be miraculously lifted up from our suffering and given a new life, a new sense of purpose. And Harry Potter gives us the chance to experience that. Because if Daniel Radcliffe can become a famous actor, then surely anything is possible. This week on Diminishing Returns, we dissect the Harry Potter franchise and then try and figure out ways of continuing the story that J.K. Rowling hasn't already done. Along the way, we choose our favourite Harry Potter film, we throw a little constructive criticism at the child stars, and we have our personalities judged by a talking hat. This episode contains spoilers for
Shutter Island and
everything to do with Harry Potter. Enjoy!
So, how about that Harry Potter? Hey?
Hello, I'm Calvin.
I'm Sol.
And I'm Alan.
And today, in anticipation of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, we're going to be taking a look at the Harry Potter film series, and then pitching our own ideas for potential sequels to that series. So often at the start of these podcasts, we like to talk a little bit about our pre-existing opinions about a movie or a series before we actually get into discussing it. So, Sol and Alan, how do you feel about Harry Potter as a franchise?
Yeah, it's alright, I guess.
Well, I'm too old for Harry Potter, basically, is my conclusion. I was looking all this information up. The first book came out in 1997. I was 13 years old then, which is probably about right for Harry Potter, or maybe just top end.
I don't know. Top end. Because the first few books were aimed a bit younger. I think they did somewhat grow with the audience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of them at that point anyway, so by the time I was aware of them, I didn't read shitty fantasy novels anyway, so no, it was sort of just beneath me, I'm afraid. and then by the time the films came out, I was like 18 or whatever. I wasn't interested at all, and never have been. And I slightly judge adults who do read it.
Yeah,
so.
I kind of.
I mean, I get it.
Well, look, I mean, I recently bought a Goosebumps book and read it. I did that in an appropriate level of shame in the privacy of my own bedroom, and
Yes.
I would not buy a Goosebumps book with like a grown-up cover and then read it on the train in front of everyone. I would be so embarrassed to be reading the works of R.L. Stine in public. It's not
exactly.
It's not,
and
there is more nuance to them. Maybe not in the first few, but then just when we were talking about age, you and I, Sol, we're roughly the same age, and we were pretty much perfect age for Harry Potter, I think. Certainly when
absolutely.
I know the first book was 97, but no one really, I don't feel like Harry Potter was really a big thing until like book 3 or 4. Then all of a sudden all the good reviews came in and people started reading it. Or were you aware of it before?
I'm pretty sure I read the first book before any of the sequels were out. I mean, I might be wrong. The second one might have been out by that point, but I mean, basically, I remember my mum just went out and came home with this book, but then she's very much the kind of person who will read one positive review of something in the newspaper and then decide, right, we'll have to go and see that or read that. And I think she just read a positive review of this new kids book, and I remember really enjoying it. Yeah, but it was very much a kids book, and I think a lot of my issues that I do have with Harry Potter stem from it increasingly like going up its own arse and taking itself more seriously. And you know, by the last one, you've got, it's asking you to take it deadly seriously, but then that's intercut with sequences of like wizards flying on vacuum cleaners and chocolate frogs and stuff, and it just doesn't quite the two tones don't gel for me. In fact, I remember getting the second book and the third book, so I was on board before the sequels had come out. Then I remember when the fourth book came out, and it was like, I mean, the third book was twice the size of the previous two, but it was, you know, not that big and doable. But then the fourth book was twice the size of the third book. And I remember getting...
probably more than that, probably like 3 times as big. It was massive.
Yeah, and I remember I got about halfway through the fourth book and I just thought, you know what? Life's too short. I'm not. It's not that good.
I'm 12 years old now. And
Exactly. I ain't got time for this shit.
So,
and then I went out and I climbed a tree.
No, you didn't.
So it sounds like you and I have had the exact same experience with it, because I was exactly the same. Except it was my stepmom that bought me the second book. This was before I think it became a big thing. She must, just like your mum, must have read a good review or something. So I read most of the second book, not realizing that it was the second book.
Right.
Because, you know, when you're a kid, you just read whatever it is you're given, and it was like, oh, okay. And then it started being a thing at school, so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go back and read the first one. So I read first, second, third, and then I finished the fourth. But when by the time the fifth one came out, which was even bigger than Goblet of Fire, it was just like, by then I'd sort of moved on. I was reading James Bond or, you know, more sci-fi, older skewing sort of stuff. And the films were coming out, so why bother reading it when the films are going to be out anyway? Apart from the first 2 films, which I'd seen several times before... I hadn't seen... I saw all of the other ones at the cinema 1 time each, and that's it. And I always came away from them feeling very underwhelmed and just not really understanding what the big deal was. For the purpose of this podcast, I rewatched all 8 films in the space of about 3 weeks, and I think I finally get it and like it. I'm not sure how much of that is Stockholm Syndrome, because I was watching most of the bonus features in this set, and when you go through, like, all the bonus features, and there are hours on each film, it's insane, and you do sort of feel a bit of nostalgia or sense of your own loss of innocence or whatever, seeing these kids grow up on screen, who are you know, my age, like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson. They're my age, and seeing them sort of grow up and evolve as people and actors was quite interesting.
I should have been Harry Potter.
Well, so I wanted to get onto this because just before we get on to talking about the films, so you and I are Daniel Radcliffe's age. Yeah. He's a little bit older than us. Yeah. And do you remember around the time? Because I remember being like 9-10 years old. It was like all around call? The open auditions.
Yeah, I do. Because my mum was like really, really pushing me. Go, be bloody Harry Potter. And I was like, well, at the time, I was really like, I hated any like attention and the idea of like performing and having to learn lines. Like, I hated the idea, so I didn't go for it. I mean, you know, Daniel Radcliffe's parents are like casting producers anyway, so I don't know how open to the public it really was. I mean, I know it was.
This is just it. Well, this is the thing. Emma Watson and Rupert Grint were very much, you know, a part of this selection process. And then they talk about it in the bonus features, like Rupert Grint was just sort of like writing in to the producer's office, just being like, oh, I'm a bit like Ron, can I be Ron? And then, like, actually went in along to one of these auditions. But Daniel Radcliffe, yeah, it's basically the producer of the film series, David Heyman, like, went to the theatre. Daniel Radcliffe's parents were there, and he apparently knew them and was like, oh, you're all right, hello. And he hadn't seen the boy before. He was just sat right behind him, so he was like, oh, he looks like he'd be a good Harry Potter. But from what I understand from the material that I've read and watched is that they didn't necessarily cast them on acting ability, more just how close to the character they were personally.
I mean, if you're gonna have open auditions and audition like 1 million kids, you'd think you'd be able to find someone who's like the character and can act. Apparently not.
You know, I feel like I just want to say this up front because I feel like we're going to be trashing Daniel Radcliffe quite a bit throughout this podcast. But I just want to say that he always comes across in interviews and in public as the nicest.
We mentioned
guy.
Him in I really like Daniel Radcliffe a lot. Yeah. Like, just to preface this, and I think I've covered this in a previous episode actually, but like, he's an atrociously bad actor, but I do get the sense that he's well aware of that, and he'd be the first to admit it. Like, he's in this incredibly privileged position to go out and make films and be paid millions for it, and like, you know, of course he's gonna go for it. And every time I've ever heard him interviewed or seen him on things, he's just been so humble, intelligent, funny. he does come across like just the nicest guy. Like, I
Yeah.
really can't fault him as a human being, based on what we know of him. Apparently, because he was spending so much time on film sets, most of his childhood, he ended up, befriending all these crew members that would just be sat around or working on stuff while he was sitting around waiting for, the camera to be set up. So he'd make all these friends and he'd chat to them, and they'd always be going on about other child actors and people and sort of sharing their stories in the industry about the awful thing that this other kid had done. And he said he made a very conscious decision that he didn't want to be one of these people that was kind of seen in that light and spoken about in that way. And then there's the other two, I guess.
Emma Watson?
I have a very difficult relationship with her because it's similar to Daniel Radcliffe. Like, I think she is an appallingly bad actor. I think she is utterly shit. Like, you can see the cogs turning in it.
That is exactly
it's not quite
the
same
phrase.
as Daniel Radcliffe. It's that very specific kind of stagecoach.
Yeah.
Like, that she went to drama classes at school.
Yes.
But you can see every cog turning in her head. Like, you're never brought out of reality when you're watching her. It's like impossible to get lost in it, and I just think she's really bad. But as annoying as I find her on a personal level, I can't really fault her as a human being. She seems like a really genuine, lovely, intelligent, switched on person. Like, she got brought in at the UN to do what's she, ambassador for women's rights or something like that. And that happened, and I kind of thought, like, well, what's that about? That's bizarre. And then she went up and did a speech, and she kind of said, like, yeah, I don't know why they've asked me to do this either, guys. Like, I'm as weirded out as you are, but, like, I'm not going to turn down the opportunity to get involved and help out. And I thought, yeah, fair enough. Like, I can't fault that. Everything that I kind of hear come out of her mouth just makes me kind of respect her. But at the same time, I spoke about Noah on an episode of the podcast a while ago, and she ruined it for me every time she came on screen. It was just like, oh, come on. That's the thing. This is the end, Alan. Do you remember when she popped up in that?
Yeah.
Just
terrible.
ruined about 10 minutes in the middle of the film and left again. And every time she appears, it's just like cringy, but
I will say this about her. I think she, as a child, she's not that bad. I would say as a child, in the first two films, she's better than the other two. It's as she gets older and becomes more aware, you can tell, like you say, that she's just processing every movement, every facial thing, and especially I think it's in films 4 and 5. I just can't stand her because she overacts so much.
I'd say she's probably the best of the three, to give her credit. Ron maybe gets away just because he, was never really given any meaty material.
Yeah.
He was always the quirky best friend up until the last few films when he had to tell Harry to piss off, and everyone in the cinema gasped.
Yes.
But then the problem that those films have with the acting, I find, is that you're putting these dreadful, I mean, not so much in the first few when they are little kids, but as they get a bit older, you're putting these awful actors up against
the greatest acting talent,
cream of the crop of British talent.
Oh, yes.
The greatest, Alan Rickman, one of the greatest, John Hurt, is he in that?
Yes, he's in a couple. Maggie Smith is in all of them.
There was seemed to be a concerted effort to keep the films British, which was a J.K. Rowling's influence, wasn't it?
I remember Spielberg wanted to adapt her books initially, and I think he wanted to adapt like the first 4 books, like all the books that were out at the time, into one film, and she just was having none of it and said, like, no, go away.
I could make a lot more money than from 4 films.
Yeah. Yeah. But like that would have been a really crap idea anyway, because it would have just been the most episodic, like all over the shop film anyway. Like,
I think we saw the last 2 together, Saul. The Deathly Hallows, parts 1 and 2. Because I remember you laughing quite a lot because it was a packed cinema. Like, I think we saw it not too long after release, and I ended up sat right next to these girls who started But I mean, there was much muttering around the cinema when Dobby died, and there was a lot of and tears were being shed.
The bit I remember really laughing at was spoiler alert, when one of Ron's like identical brothers dies.
Oh yes.
And then the person comes in and says like, whatever the name is has died. And then I heard someone go, which one's that? And I just thought like, well, you can't be that invested then, can you? Like, you gasped, but...
Everyone normally agrees that the third one is the best, don't they?
Oh, by a mile, by
Yeah.
an absolute mile. Yeah.
I'm in that camp now.
What I've seen of the first one and the second one, they're solid little kids' films.
Yeah.
I can't really take issue with them. I think they're perfectly decent little, like I say, kids' films. Third one, it starts to build into something a bit more, but it's still, well within the realms of not being up its own arse and stuff, and it's still well paced and well written and generally well crafted. And there's a lovely nod to the Back to the Future franchise in the shot where they go back and look at is it Hermione smacking Draco in the face?
Yes.
It's like shot identically to when Marty sees Crispin Glover smacking Biff or whatever it is in the second film. Yeah, I remember it being the fourth film where things really just kind of... For me, the fourth film felt like... Do you remember those film recaps done by bunnies in 60 seconds that were popular around the same time?
Yes.
Because I remember just thinking that the whole film felt like one of those. It just felt like a recap of the book that never had a chance to like sit down and breathe. And had I not read about half of the book, I probably like wouldn't have even been able to like follow what the bloody hell was going on, because it just moved so quickly. I don't know, it really suffered for its length, and it's not often I'd say this, but I really feel like that probably needed to be a 4-hour film.
Well, they did contemplate splitting it into two. I think, actually, apart from the very last one, I think it's the second shortest of the films. Which
Really?
is which I was surprised about, because how you described it is exactly how I remembered it from seeing it at the cinema. Watching it again for the second time actually held up for me a lot better, and I would say it's probably my second favourite, because I ranked them as I went through, and it's probably my second favourite of the bunch. It is the one where I think 1 and 2 certainly feel like their own little self-contained films. You know, you have a year at school, Harry defeats a villain at the end, and then, I'll get you next time, but that's it. 3, they sort of leave a couple of threads lingering, but 4 is very definitely the one where it's like, okay, it's not conclusive at the end. Voldemort's back and he's out there somewhere, and then the rest of the series is just going to be
Is that good,
one.
though? Is that what you want? Should it be episodic?
No, it's not what I want.
The problem is I remember them still feeling quite episodic as it went on, but like I say, it was this weird thing where it was starting to, believe its own sense of self-importance and delusions of grandeur and stuff, and you ended up getting this like big epic storyline that you were meant to be like really invested in, but then there'd be like, that would be the B plot, and the main plot would be, who's this new strict head teacher taking over Hogwarts? Oh, they're so strict, everyone's sick of it. And it was like that's a sitcom trope. That's been done on every sitcom. The new boss takes over. Oh, God. You remember when they go... Which film is it where they go in the toilet and then they flush themselves into the...
That's, Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Right, because that's a perfect example of what I'm on about. Because that's this light-hearted, fun kids thing, but they're taking it so seriously that for the rest of the film I was thinking, well, how come we're not just seeing loads of turds falling through the magic fireplace on the other side?
Yeah.
Surely it would just stink of shit, because all the muggles are going in there and using it as a toilet, and that's why they're not going to the Magic Kingdom. You have to stand in it and flush yourself if you know it's a portal. You know what really bugs me with the Harry Potter films, actually? This is a broad criticism, and it's something that I think put me off them partly as a kid, but it's something that really aggravates me. And sometimes when I explain this to people, they like completely get what I'm on about. Sometimes people get like really sort of offended and don't understand what I'm on about.
Ooh, okay.
But like for me, what really bugs me with the films is the creature design and the general art direction. Now, it's obviously very expensive creature design and art direction. It looks perfectly competent, but there's no artistry behind it. And what I mean is they kind of... Dobby the house elf, it is the most generic elf I've ever seen. There's no... You think to the likes of... well, I guess Star Wars, or you look at the design of Darth Vader, lightsabers. It's all these really iconic things that are drawing on other places, but at no point in Star Wars do you see just a bog standard little green man with big eyes. And Harry Potter is like if every single alien in Star Wars just rode around in a flying saucer and looked like things from the Roswell incident. There's no like imagination, and I know they are limited in part by what J.K. Rowling wrote, but you can take what people give you with that regard and work with it and make them look a bit more interesting. Like I say, the house elves are the most generic looking. You ask someone to draw an elf, they'll come out with those elves. Frigging Voldemort, it just looks like so boring. And yeah, like he's kind of following the description in the book, but have some fun with it. Like, make him look a bit more interesting than that. Like, you can keep it in the book without, and true to the book's description, without it just being a letter by letter, paint by numbers, filling in the blanks. And it really aggravates me that these films have had like millions and millions of dollars pumped into the art direction, and like I say, creature design and costumes and things, and yet for the most part everything looks so generic. I guess the likes of Snape have quite interesting costume and hair and makeup, but certainly when it comes to the dragons and the trolls and the goblins, they're so boring to look at.
I'm gonna disagree with you on the like. There's no artistry. I think there's artistry.
Calvin's
there.
offended.
I think. I think there is artistry there, but it's just not necessarily out of the box artistry. Like, I think the goblins, like in the bank, are perfectly fine. Like, it's exactly what you think of when you think of a goblin, and they just sort of perfect the stereotype, I guess.
Well, I think that's what he's saying. It's exactly what you imagine when you picture these things as an 11-year-old child reading a book.
Exactly.
So so where's the extra element that you bring professionalism?
You can go down to a garden centre and buy some like crappy off-brand garden gnome, and it looks the same. They've put the same like effort into these little things, and it's the difference between impressionism and just painting what you see. And Harry Potter is just someone painting what you see. But I like films where they take the impressionist ideologies on board and try and give you something a bit more interesting and outside the box, and it's one of the biggest bugbears I have with the franchise.
I think that's a good point, actually. I think it's one of those things where it's like the difference between a technician who could be a master of their craft and an artist that brings more to it, or more kind of a depth to it, I suppose, isn't it?
I just want to talk about the music for a moment, actually, because especially John Williams did the first, and we all know the Harry Potter theme, don't we?
It's the last great John Williams score.
I would go so far as to say, and you two might have to help me out here, because I can't think of a movie series or even an individual movie that's gone on to be a franchise where they have a key notable theme like this since Harry Potter. Like, Star Wars very much has its theme, Indiana Jones theme, Bond theme, Jaws theme. Harry Potter, for me, like, I don't think there's not a specific like Marvel theme for that franchise, but there isn't a few notes I would hear that would make me think, oh yes, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Potter is kind of the last, like, say, like, truly iconic score that your average person on the street could hum. I watched there was a sort of video piece doing the rounds recently about Marvel, and it wasn't attacking Marvel per se, it was using it as an example of what's going wrong in Hollywood at the moment, just because it's like the biggest franchise. They were doing the thing of getting random people on the street, can you hum the theme from Star Wars for me? Can you hum the theme from Indiana Jones? What about Harry Potter? okay, so do you like Marvel films? And they were all like, oh yeah, I love Marvel. And it's like, right, so can you hum a single Marvel score for me? And I got annoyed because a lot of people criticize the music in Marvel's films for being completely generic, and I personally think that the theme to Ant-Man was one of the best film scores of recent years, but I'm someone who listens to film scores and pays attention to them, and I understand the point that they're not like household name scores. And a lot of the music in the Marvel films are very, very generic pieces. Their theory was that it's due to overuse of temp tracks, which, if you're not familiar, temp tracking is where in the edit you will typically just grab a bit of music from a similar, horror film or blockbuster superhero film or something, just something that you think will fit. So when you're like working through the rough cut edit of your film and figuring out where, or even the fine cut, I should add, figuring out when you're going to cut stuff and what have you, you've got a bit of music there, because it can be very, very jarring to watch a scene with no music. But the problem is that you can end up, one, cutting the film based on the music, which means that you're kind of locked in to have something that plays the same way, and two, directors frequently will just fall in love with the music that they're used to, and you end up with all these situations. So one of many reasons I was disappointed with The Force Awakens, that I'm sure we'll get to at some point, is that even episode 1 managed to introduce Jewel of the Fates, some wonderful new John Williams music. With John Williams coming back for Force Awakens, it's criminal that there wasn't some incredible new Star Wars theme being given to us, and yet the music for the new Star Wars film is so utterly generic, just bits of music from past films and nothing that stands out. You know what? I have remembered arguably more iconic film score from more recent times. The score to Inception, if that counts. And it's not so much the theme, it's not so much the music, but just the repeated use of bwam. but that is very much the musical design of that film is true. Dun 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 bwam. And you think about how many films have ripped that off since, how many tripped that off since. And I know people who've got that as their phone like text alert, that bwam noise. I do think that's permeated pop culture in quite the same way. But I mean that is the only one I can think of since the first Harry Potter film, which was 2001. Is that right?
What about Pirates of the Caribbean, something like that?
Well, Pirates of the Caribbean, I love the score and I love the music, but it's just the score to Gladiator. Like genuinely,
that was when Hans Zimmer took back over. He didn't score the first one. The first one has the identifiable theme that he doesn't really use that much in the sequels.
He produced the score or something though. I think he did have his fingers on it. But I mean, the music and the iconic score from Pirates of the Caribbean is just the theme from Gladiator. And as I think I mentioned in a previous episode of the show, that theme from Gladiator was just music that he'd written for The Lion King 2, which is obviously a far less well-known film score, so it gets away with it. But it's that dun 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 dun.
Oh, that is in the first film. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So I mean, the last two films were this, huge.
Yeah.
Rather upsettingly, they pioneered and cemented the idea of being able to split the last book into two films.
Yes. Which we've seen many times since.
I hate the penultimate Harry Potter film. I don't mind the other films. They vary from like perfectly watchable, entertaining, fair to like pretty great. In the case of the third one, I fucking hate the penultimate one, Deathly Hallows Part 1. It's a 3-hour trailer for Deathly Hallows Part 2. It's horseshit. There's no thematic justification for splitting that story in two. If you have to do it, like, make it work within the structure, and like I say, thematically, but don't literally take a story that was written as a whole and just cut it in half. Release a 4-hour film. have some fucking balls. But obviously it's a financially driven decision, and sadly that's the world we live in.
They made an extra $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly. But who the hell let her release a book that was like 9,000 pages long in the first place? Why didn't they split the book up in two and boost the money out of that as well?
If anyone on Earth could have done that at that time, I think the most financially successful author, J.K. Rowling, was probably the person who.
Well, she doesn't need the money, but the publisher surely would go, "Look, this is supposed to be a kid's book. You could kill a whale with this. What are you doing?"
Well, they probably had that discussion, and she probably turned around and said, "Fuck you." Like...
Yeah, I must admit, I like that. From what I know of J.K. Rowling, I do like that.
I know we complained a bit about the earlier films being episodic and maybe having too many characters and setting up too much stuff, but the last two films decide to condense it all down to just Harry to such a degree that they do a disservice to pretty much anyone else. I mean, the Dursleys, I know that they're not a big part of it, but Fiona Shaw and Richard Griffiths are pretty great British actors, and they receive quite prominent billing, say that Fiona Shaw is in 1 2-second shot with no lines.
It's an interesting point, though, you make that there are a lot of characters in this, aren't they? And they do keep a lot of them in the film. But they do handle it, or at least in the ones I saw, they handle it well, you know? You have this... You don't feel like they're just shoved in there.
You kind of do towards the end in the ones you haven't seen, Alan. That's the thing. As it becomes increasingly more like... Oh shit, we haven't mentioned that really important plot point that needs to be in this thing that was probably like 20 pages of dialogue in the book, and we've not got the running time, and there are loads of little bits where you do just get like a shot. I remember again in the last two, there's a whole... My understanding is it's quite a prolonged sequence in the books where Hermione has to like wipe her parents' memory of her in order to get away with like kind of disappearing and keeping them safe from all the shit going down in the wizarding world, because she's half muggle. And my memory of that in the film is that there's one shot of her like magically removing herself from like photographs in her parents' house, and that's it.
Yes. And
it's like never touched on, and it's like that's a
pretty brutal thing to have to do, isn't it? Yes.
To just gloss over like that. And not to mention that like it doesn't really convey... It's very much one of those things that I bet loads of kids had to like go online and Google like why was Hermione making herself disappear from photographs? What was that about? To like understand it. How come this happens to someone? How come this person doesn't acknowledge this? And they go, you can't complain about that because in the book there's this whole thing where this thing happens. And I'd be like, well, I can complain about that because a film has to stand on its own feet. It can't rely on footnotes of a book it's based on that it's not even like completely faithful to.
Yeah. One of the things that annoys me the most about that, to that point, because I had to research this online, because like I said, I've not read the last book, but there's a bit in the very last one where it sort of explains Harry's going into Dumbledore's memory fountain thing. And he sort of discovers, they sort of try and explain exactly why Voldemort wanted to kill Harry in the first place. Apparently in the book, it's this big thing where Emma Thompson's character, Sybil Trelawney, I think it is pronounced, who's the kooky medium character in Hogwarts. It all comes down to basically she had a premonition and then talked to, I think it was Dumbledore about it, and then Snape overheard, and then she had the premonition that, there's going to be a kid born this month. He's going to kill Voldemort. So Voldemort went out and then tried to kill... But they gloss over it so much. There is like a 2-second shot of Emma Thompson sort of swilling around in this montage in a well, and you can't quite make out the dialogue, and it only makes sense if you know the book, if you've read that. And for me as a film watcher, I was like...
Right, I'm going to pledge now that when we inevitably get round to... doing an episode tying into Fantastic Beasts and all that jazz too, I'll watch the Deathly Hallows Part 2 again and come back with some specific notes, because there's so much about this film that I want to jump all over and just complain about, because I remember that it basically boils down to a kind of Home Alone in the school situation at the end, but then it's like... And then it's like they send someone to like blow up a bridge to stop these fucking like magical wizards from getting in, who like
Death
earlier
Eaters.
on in the film were flying around on like broomsticks, and they think that blowing up a bridge is gonna like what?
Well, the thing that annoys me about that is that earlier on in the film you have Harry, Ron, and Hermione falling from a great height.
Oh,
Hermione
God,
says a
I
spell,
hated that.
And it stops them. And then later on you have these bad guys falling. And I brought this up with people because there's a complaint about the
none
film.
of them. That was one of my biggest complaints. Yeah, you've reminded me that I hate that because all these people fall to their presumed death. And earlier on, like you say, they establish very firmly. Because I complain about, when there's that fire and no one thinks to magic a load of water and to save the day, and people go, well, it's magic fire. But, it's not magic gravity, is it? Like, these people are falling to their death, and they're magicians with their wands out, primed to use them. Yeah. And none of them think to save their skin.
I've brought this up with people as like a complaint before, and the only response I would tend to get is, oh, well, maybe they didn't know that spell, which is bullshit, because if I'm a wizard and I can learn some spells, the spells that I'm going to learn are the ones that, or if I'm falling and going to die, I want to stop that. It's like, I will learn them. Do you think they'll ever get around to adapting the stage play for a movie? I don't know how much you've heard about that or know about it.
Well, before we move on to that quickly, I just want to mention the very ending of Deathly Hallows Part 2 when when the film just goes into Bugsy Malone mode and we see all the kids done up to be like 50 and it just looks fucking absurd.
Yeah.
It's like...
It's Ron with his like beer belly that he's got and wispy mustache.
But it's just like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint with old age makeup on. Not particularly great old age makeup.
No.
It's the cringiest thing. Sending their kids off eating chocolate frogs on the train.
Is this this epilogue as well? Is it like is it just like a painfully happy ending, like, and everything worked out well?
Yes.
Yeah, Ron and Hermione happy together. Harry and his girlfriend happy together.
And you've got to have that. You've got to have like, oh, Ron and Hermione. You can't have like, well, yeah, they broke up a couple of years later. Ron met this girl like at a club, and then it was like
two couples that met in high school from a pool of about like 30 other students, because it's not a big school really in terms of how many people are there. And under very, very tense, strenuous, emotional times that don't really lend themselves to like a meaningful relationship forming. And yeah, they both end up with kids and a seemingly happy relationship down the line. But
well, what about this play, right? Because this play has just come out this summer and is a direct follow-on from the Harry Potter stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like them... their kids and all that. Has anyone seen it? Does anyone know what it's about?
No.
Like, okay, never mind then.
But as far as I'm aware, it's Harry's kid at Hogwarts and Draco Malfoy's kid is also at Hogwarts, and I guess Ron and Hermione's.
Oh God.
And I think it's a lot to do with.
Oh, that really does sound like bad fan fiction.
It is just Hogwarts, the new class.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I know about it is that I'm pretty sure that Harry's son gets put into Slytherin, and that's a big issue apparently, because people set a great.
Well, that means you're evil, doesn't it? Eh?
It is just take this child at 11 and set them on a path to whatever they're going to be.
You're a shit, you're a nerd, deal with it.
Yeah, what a horrible thing to do to children for a start, and then not letting them deviate.
Yeah, not to mention that surely one of the benefits of like throwing a load of kids together in a school is that the kid is sort of forced to integrate with people that might not be exactly the same as them and kind of grow as a person. So by like funneling everyone into like personality types and shoving them all together, you're just gonna create really extremist,
not to mention
like forms of everyone.
You've got Gryffindor, which are the like nice guys, Slytherin the bad guys, and then others, and it's like nobody even knows what they are.
What are you talking about? People do know who they are. It's like, do you know how much is written about these?
I don't. So what are the names? What are the names of the houses?
There is Gryffindor.
Hufflepuff.
So Gryffindor is Gryffindor
Hufflepuff.
nice guys?
Gryffindor is Harry.
Is that Harry Potter?
Hero,
They're the heroes,
chivalrous,
yes.
courageous.
Okay. Slytherin, I know, is bad, like naughty bad guys. Probably wear black.
Yes.
Sneaky.
Yeah. Okay.
So then there's
What's the other one?
Ravenclaw.
So Ravenclaw, are they like jocks?
No,
are they into
they're
sport?
more
ones.
intellectual.
Yeah.
They're smart, cunning.
Oh.
Oh, is Hermione in Ravenclaw?
No.
No, she's got to be in Gryffindor because then otherwise they'd never see each other.
But
Well, this is the thing, because apparently the Sorting Hat doesn't... It's not a clear-cut, oh, you're that personality type, you go there, even though it kind of is. But apparently it is
That's
slightly
exactly
more
what it
nuanced by
does.
that. Because, well, apparently the Sorting Hat wanted to put Harry in Slytherin, but it was only because Harry didn't want to be in Slytherin that it put him in Gryffindor, but I'm not quite sure...
so can the Sorting Hat like see through time and space and kind of be like, well, these three kids need to be together because they're going to save the world, and this kid like...
In which case, could it be put to better use, these skills?
Yeah.
Also, is
you'd
it just
think.
a hat? Is he a sentient hat? Like, what happens when it's not the first day of school?
Yeah. Harry sees it in Dumbledore's office, like in the next film, and he's just chilling. He's just like, oh, hello. It's Leslie Phillips doing the voice.
And he just talks to Dumbledore every now and then. Like, what?
Okay, right. This is a good segue because, guys, we're gonna find out what Harry Potter houses you two are in. On the Pottermore website.
Wait a minute. What are the Hufflepuffs?
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, Hufflepuffs.
a Hufflepuff, are they just kind of like a bit... Are they like the kids eating glue in the back of the class?
Yes, pretty much.
Are they the arts?
Oh, no, are they really?
Are they arts and crafts?
They are a little bit, but they're sort of wet and not really. Yeah,
they're
not...
Team Yellow on Pokemon Go.
I'm Team Yellow on Pokemon. Oh God.
I rest my case.
But I because on Pottermore, which is the official Harry Potter website that J.K. Rowling does a lot of writing for, they actually have a sorting hat, which is apparently the most accurate and nuanced. I've read articles where people have tried to do the sorting hat, thinking they knew what they were going to get themselves in for,
Okay.
and then it's come out with something else.
Oh,
I
fuck,
did
it's gonna say I'm in fucking Huffledore,
Okay.
the glue-eating one. isn't
Okay.
it?
I did it last week. You can only do it once, so you guys got to do it. But can you guess where it put me?
What sort of
Slytherin,
questions does it
probably.
ask?
What was that, Alan?
What sort of questions does it ask? Like, how does it try and determine your personality?
Is it basically a Myers-Briggs personality test, and they've like dressed it up with some magic?
You two will find out. I'm not spoiling the questions until we get started. But can you guess where it put me?
You could go in any of the three that aren't the heroes one quite happily.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you're not courageous.
I don't
you're
think I
not
put you in
sneaky.
Ravenclaw either. I think for you it would be the glue eating.
You're Team
or,
Yellow. You're Team Yellow.
Or the villain one.
Yeah, I think you're wet.
What, you think I'm in Hufflepuff?
Yeah.
That or Slytherin, I reckon.
I got Slytherin.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You've got a dark.
I
streak.
was. I thought I was going to get Ravenclaw.
Nah, you're. I can see that.
Okay, guys.
Like Calvin, you know, you're taking the role of the Sorting Hat. We have to imagine Calvin is the Sorting Hat now.
Ah.
Calvin, sit on Alan's head.
Ah, okay then, yes.
Oh.
I mean, I don't want to sit on Alan's head, but...
Alan's face.
Right, I'm going to do my best Leslie Phillips impersonation and be the Sorting Hat. Answer truthfully. After all, the Hat's decision is final. So the first question... Alan, welcome to Hogwarts.
Sorry, who plays the Sorting Hat again?
Leslie Phillips.
Oh, okay. do that again?
Alan, welcome to Hogwarts. I don't know what accent I'm doing here. But...
Do you know? Have you ever heard Leslie Phillips' voice? It's quite famous.
Hello, Alan. Alan, moon or stars?
Do I have no context for this? I just have to pick.
No,
moon
it's
or
just
stars?
saying moon or stars. That is the question.
It's like a Rorschach test, Alan. Just you got to go. Which one's more appealing?
Yes.
Oh, God.
I thought this would be fun.
That's a stupid question.
Alan,
I'm a
do
big
you
fan
like
of the
moons more or stars more? It's very simple.
Depends on. Oh God. I don't know. The moon has Hufflepuff written all over it. If you ask me, I'm going stars.
Ooh, interesting strategy because people have tried to do this and it hasn't worked out. Okay, next question.
Yes.
If you were attending Hogwarts, which pet would you choose to take with you? Would it be
Pet.
would
Not
it
a rat.
be
Not a human disguised as a rat.
would it be a tabby cat,
Oh,
a
yes.
Siamese cat,
Oh.
a ginger cat, a black cat,
There's not a lot of choice here, is
a
there?
white
Fucking hell.
a white cat, a tawny owl, a screech owl, a brown owl, a snowy owl,
As if I know the differences between owls.
a barn owl, a common toad, a natterjack
All right, look.
toad,
We could
a
cut this
dragon
down,
toad,
right? Let's stop it.
a harlequin toad,
How many
or a
options?
three-toed tree toad.
Oh my God. All right. Look.
The last one had toad in it twice.
Alan, knowing you, I think you're going to pick a cat.
I would undoubtedly pick a cat. Yes.
Okay, do you want me to go through the cats
options
again?
Yes, please.
Okay, you have a white cat.
Hang on,
A
right?
black-
Is this literally just a difference in colours? Is that all I'm judging between?
No, there's Siamese cat and a tabby cat in there as well. Otherwise, you've got white,
Tabby
black,
is
or
just
brown.
a colour. Siamese are two up themselves. We know that from Aristocats. I'm not going Siamese. What? I want a black and white cat. Can you give me that?
Black and white?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's no such option. You either have to have black or white.
What were the other options?
White cat, black cat, ginger cat, Siamese cat, tabby cat.
I think this would be a really fun game, but Alan's like managing to draw all of the fun.
I know, right?
Just like Harry Potter in general. This is why he doesn't enjoy it, because he's just the fun sponge.
Okay, I'm gonna go for white cat.
Ooh. Good evening, Mr. Bond. Right. Right.
I don't want a long hair cat though. They're too much looking
But-
after. Can I specify short hair, please?
Okay, Alan, next question. Which of the following would you most like to study? Centaurs,
No. How far would you get in that?
Is that like anthropology, or is it, like the...
Veterinarianism,
Because
zoology.
centaurs are presumably knocking around in, like, Harry Potter society. Like, is that a lesson? Like, you'd study humans? I mean, like I say, anthropology? Or is it like some weird, archaic, like, racial hierarchy? Like,
maybe. Well, I mean, anyway, next up. So you've got centaurs, goblins,
Okay.
merpeople,
Is
ghosts.
that like mermaids and mermen?
Yes.
Okay.
Ghosts, vampires.
Ghosts.
Yeah. Vampires, werewolves, and trolls. Which one would you most like to study?
Ghosts.
What interests you the most out of those options?
Well, I don't know. I think ghosts. If we're like in the Harry Pottering world where like paintings come to life and all that kind of ghosts.
You'd go for ghosts.
Yeah. Because I think you
Ooh,
could
okay.
actually analyze the sort of physical properties of a ghost and
Okay.
actually do some decent research there.
I'm putting that in as your answer. Ghosts.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Once every century, the flutterby bush produces flowers that adapt their scent to attract the unwary. If lured to it, if it lured you, it would smell of a crackling log fire.
This is
The
about
sea.
smell, right?
Yes.
Smell. The smell of the sea is disgusting. Okay, so it won't be that one. Go
Fresh parchment.
on. Fresh parchment. How many times have I smelt that in my days? Oh God. Yeah, go on.
Or home. So, what would you smell of? Oh no, what would... If it lured you...
What would
it
entice
smell...
me?
Oh, okay. No, yeah, what would it smell of? So it's basically asking you your favourite smell out of these four things.
I guess if it's something that's going to entice me, then home. Whatever
okay.
that would be. I don't know what that would be, but I guess you would feel familiar regardless of how it actually smelled.
Okay.
So
You're getting into this. I like it. After you have died, what would you most like people to do when they hear your name? The answers.
Spit on the ground.
Miss you, but smile.
Okay.
Ask for more stories about your adventures.
All right.
Think with admiration of your achievements. Or the last option, I don't care what people think of me after I'm dead. It's what they think of me while I'm alive that counts.
Ooh, this is quite a deep question, actually. I think I do. I think I'm concerned about my legacy. Like, I'd like to think that people think well of me after I'm gone. So I think it takes the last option out. I think I'm going to go miss you, but smile.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Right. Okay.
I feel a bit emotional
now. Another question. A muggle confronts you and says that they are sure you are a witch or wizard.
A muggle is just a normal person, right?
Yes, and they're coming up to you and they're like, they're positive that you're a witch or wizard.
I'm magic.
Do you
okay, yeah.
ask what makes them think so, agree and ask whether they'd like a free sample of a jinx, agree and walk away, leaving them to wonder whether you are bluffing?
Is asking if you'd like a free sample of a jinx, is that like one of those schoolyard things where you go, did you see that film Gaylord Say No?
I think so. I think it's meant to be the sassy
Would
option.
you like a pound?
or tell them that you were worried about their mental health and offer to call a doctor.
Okay, I'm just hanging out. I'm at school. I'm 11 years old. I'm a wizard. And a muggle approaches me. Is this a stranger? Okay, let's assume it's a stranger that's going, oh, you're a wizard, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just go, yeah, I am. What about it?
Oh, okay,
so
then, yeah.
What was the option? Yes, and then just walk away.
So there were two options for yes. Agree and ask whether they'd like a free sample of a jinx. So that's the sassy option. Or agree and walk away, leaving them to wonder whether you are bluffing.
That one, yeah, I'd just walk away. I just passive aggressive it.
Okay, I think this might be the last question. Which of the following do you find most difficult to deal with? Hunger.
Impotence. Oh,
Hunger.
sorry, the options.
Hunger. Cold. Loneliness. Boredom. Being ignored.
Say them again?
Oh, okay. That was being ignored. Boredom. Loneliness, cold, hunger.
What do I find most difficult to deal with?
Yes.
On a psychological level, I have to say loneliness.
Oh, okay, then.
But on a physical level, probably hunger or cold. Because if I'm alone but I'm eating, then I would at least be alive. But yeah, let's go with loneliness.
Loneliness, okay.
I think I'm definitely going to be a Hufflepuff.
Oh, no, okay, maybe this is the last question. Black or white?
Is there an option for I'm not racist, thanks? I've already picked white cat, so I'll go black just to throw it off the scent.
Alan,
yes.
do you know what you are?
Am I yeah, go on, please.
Okay, guess.
I want to be a Ravenclaw.
I think
want
Alan
to
should be a Ravenclaw, yeah.
Okay. Well, Alan, you are Gryffindor.
Oh, yeah, I'm the hero, yeah.
So this means that we're mortal enemies now.
Oh, great. What's Neville?
Gryffindor.
Yeah, well, you can be in Gryffindor and still be a knob then, I suppose. Doesn't mean everybody likes you, does it?
No. True. So, Alan, you are brave, courageous, chivalrous, daring, and bold. Okay, Sol, you go.
Okay, so it's asking me dawn or dusk, and I will go with dusk, because I'm not a morning person. Now it's asking me the same stuff now.
Oh,
It's
okay.
asking if I want to study centaurs, goblins, merpeople, ghosts, vampires, werewolves, trolls. I'm going to go vampires because I think they'd be an interesting area of study. How it so it's presumably some sort of something that corrupts the human body. I think it'd be quite interesting to study. All right, now it's asking what cat I want.
Did
or
you get the
toad,
options of
or
toads
owl.
and other things as well? But you have a black cat, so are you gonna slap that cat in the face and go for something else?
Let's go with a black cat. You enter an enchanted garden. What would you be most curious to examine first? The silver-leafed tree bearing golden apples. The fat red toadstools that appear to be talking to each other. The bubbling pool in the depths of which something luminous is swirling. Or the statue of an old wizard with strangely twinkling eyes.
Oh, don't trust it.
I guess I'll go with the talking toadstools, because that'd be weird. I mean, if I was already a wizard, it'd probably be something else, but just based on like how I am now and not dealing with talking plants and fungi, yeah, let's go with that one. How would you like to be known to history? The wise, the good, the great, the bold. I guess I'll go with wise, because I think I'd rather people think I'm smart than think I'm a good person.
Is that Slytherin all over then, is it?
I don't know.
Which would you rather be? Envied, imitated, trusted, praised, liked, feared?
Ooh.
I think... I don't know.
I'd like to be feared.
I think I'd like to be envied, to be honest.
Oh.
But really, like, I don't know. Maybe I should go for liked. I think I'd rather be liked. I don't know. If everyone hated me, but it's because they were like envious of me, I'd probably be alright with that. But I'm going down a dark path here. Maybe I want to throw it off the scent. No, I'd probably rather. No, I'd probably want to.
Yeah, you got to be honest.
Remember, this house is going to define you for the next 7 years of your education, so may as well be honest.
I think I'd want to be liked. I want to be envied by people that like me. So I'll go with like. That's like the first layer. Which nightmare would frighten you most? Standing on top
Zombies.
of something very high and realizing suddenly that there are no hand or footholds nor any barrier to stop you falling.
Ooh.
An eye at the keyhole of the dark, windowless room in which you are locked. Waking up to find that neither your friends nor your family have any idea who you are.
Ooh.
Being forced to speak in such a silly voice that hardly anyone can understand you and everyone laughs at you. You're living that one, Calvin. I think I'll go with falling to my death. It's the most kind of immediate threat. Like, some of the others would be quite psychologically nasty, but that I could probably learn them to deal with them and get over it, whereas falling to death, I don't know, that's more, like I say, it's more immediate. I'll go with that one.
Okay.
Heads or tails?
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with heads.
I feel like that might be the last question.
I'm in Hufflepuff, what's that?
I knew it! I knew it!
Something
I
like
knew
glue.
you would be. As soon as you said that thing about the fucking toadstools, I was like, oh, he's Hufflepuff. I know it.
Is that the one that eats glue?
Yes!
What does it say your traits are?
You're in the Ralph Wiggum house.
Is Hufflepuff like the Stoner house?
Stop trying to
Don't try and make it sound
cool.
You probably know that some of Hufflepuff's most renowned members include Nymphadora Tonks and Cedric Diggory.
Oh, Cedric Diggory.
But did you know that Hufflepuff's house ghost, the Fat Friar, still resents the fact he was never made a cardinal, or that Hufflepuff has produced the fewest dark wizards of any house at Hogwarts? See, we're the true good guys.
See, all my house is just full of villains. It's just like... I've got Snape, Malfoy, Bellatrix, Dolores Umbridge.
Yeah, but you would fall into the role of, like, snivelling little, like, sidekick. Do you remember
Yes.
Recess? What was Miss Finster's?
Randall.
Yeah, you'd be like Randall to the big bad.
Ugh. So, just below famous Hufflepuff characters, there should be a Hufflepuff traits thing. What does it say?
Loyal, patient, fair, hardworking, true.
Looking like a donkey.
I don't know how accurate that is, to be honest. I don't think I'm very
that
loyal.
loyal bit. God. Well, that was fun. We all wanted Ravenclaw, none of us got it.
No,
Yeah,
what?
that's true.
I think I wanted Slytherin, if anything.
Oh, right. Oh,
There's
okay. I
there's
wanted Ravenclaw.
What's the mascot of Ravenclaw? Not Ravenclaw. Slytherin.
Snake.
I guess I prefer a badger to a snake.
Don't try and make Hufflepuff sound cool all of a sudden.
Badgers eat snakes, don't they? Mongooses do.
mongooses.
They're pretty much badgers.
Badgers carry TB. You have to smash them in the head. with a rock.
Badgers are pretty fucking cool, right? When I worked on Springwatch, a badger got into like the bird like enclosure of the RSPB and swam over to a little island and ate like something obscene, like 4,000 calories worth of like eggs. It just ate all of the eggs and then just swam off. And they came in the morning and watched this footage of this badger just outright just destroying a generation of endangered birds. And I thought it was pretty cool. They can climb, and
Bill
you know what else
crying in the
badgers do?
corner.
Loads of the times when a fox gets into the chicken coop and eats all the chickens, and the farmer's like, right, we're gonna kill some foxes. It's actually a badger that done it, but it blamed it on a fox.
There's a badger in like a fox outfit.
Genuinely, it's frequently it's badgers that like get in and eat all the chickens, but everyone just thinks it's the fox, and like the foxes get killed for it. So pretty cool badgers, I reckon.
Okay,
So
shall we?
So now we've established that Hufflepuff is the coolest house.
Shall we get into our pictures?
Yeah. We've established what Harry Potter is pretty well there. Gone on about it long enough. Alan, you hate Harry Potter, so how would you improve it?
Okay, yeah, so right, I don't know that much about Harry Potter. We've probably established that, but I did have to do a bit of research for this, even though it didn't involve watching the films. But I read like the synopsis and blah blah blah. I kind of got the idea. But mostly, I spoke to other people who did watch it and have read the books and sort of got other sort of opinions. And I sort of went down a lot of tangents, like, oh, that's an interesting bit, and then they go, oh no, that doesn't really go anywhere. So that was kind of my start-off point. And what I wanted to do was prequels that encapsulated the story of the older generation. To give mine a bit more of a sort of comedic spin, I wanted to do it as like a 70s style sitcom. So, and like the first I was thinking of like a kind of Three's Company classic setup kind of sitcom with Lily, James and Snape all living together. In some kind of awkward love triangle, something like that. But then I tried to keep it actually within canon of the story that we've already got. So basically, my setup, my idea is like the In-Betweeners, but it's called the Marauders.
Oh. So
you have the Marauders. You know what they are, right? Okay. The Marauders, as in the Marauders map.
Oh, right, yes. Sorry, yes. Okay.
Yeah?
Yes, I know what you
I'm
mean.
talking about?
Yes.
So, yeah, it's Lupin, Peter Pettigrew, Sirius Black, and James Potter. And they were, like, the gang in the 70s at Hogwarts. And so that's the concept, really. They're as teenagers, 16, 17 or whatever, and their sort of hijinks and adventures at Hogwarts. So it's like the In-Betweeners with magic, pretty much. But it would focus like on, you know, the adolescent struggles and the kind of real life stuff, because that's the bit I liked about Harry Potter. So I mean, that's it in terms of the actual concept, because, you know, what more do you need? But I've got a few ideas, and this is what I'm hoping you might be able to throw in a few ideas because you know the canon a little bit better than me. And I know you guys, and Sol, you're very familiar with sitcom tropes, so you could throw a bit of stuff in here. I don't know, I just came up with some basic sort of plot ideas that you could have, because they all turn into animals, right? So you could use that as well, like maybe the Timothy Spall one, he turns into a rat. And then he sneaks into like the girls' changing rooms or something like that, and then hilarity ensues basically, and then you get and Filch, that's the caretaker guy. He lays down traps to catch this rat because they don't realize it's one of the boys. They catch the rat, and then the others have to like rescue him before they find out that it's not a real rat and that it's a boy, blah, blah, blah. That's one plot.
They definitely...
Right? That's one episode, boom.
They definitely call him Felch behind his back, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, he can be like one of the main antagonists. Yeah. So you got him.
Felchy.
I know...
was Felching a thing in the 70s?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's probably when it was invented.
Don't they start the second In-Betweeners movie with the characters dressed up as Harry Potter characters?
I don't know.
Don't know.
They're like going to a fancy dress party or something, and
that rings a bell because the tall one is Hermione, I think. Oh yeah, so other characters you could have. Snape was at the school at the same time, obviously, and I thought there could be like a continuing thing that they bully him so badly that it affects him for the rest of his life. Hilarity ensues. So that's like a great funny bit. But you could have a whole thing with Snape, like as a whole plot arc where he becomes an enemy or something.
Enemy of the Snape.
But the problem with these guys is they are kind of like knobheads, really. And like you could have. James Potter, he's trying to get off with this girl called Lily, but she thinks he's a bit of an arrogant knobhead, so she rejects him and his friends take the piss out of him. Little things like that, just throwing in ideas. Oh, what about this one, right? This is a good plot idea. Peter Pettigrew, right? He's the rat one. He steals something from the tuck shop. He gets caught, right? And he panics and he frames Sirius for it to get out of trouble. And then Sirius is put in detention for 12 years and goes mental. or if you wanted to keep it light, you could have Sirius gets put in detention, but then he has like a Breakfast Club style adventure. And then you'd have to come up with other sort of Harry Potter characters that would fit the Breakfast Club characters. I'm just trying to do film homages within film spin-offs. Sitcom.
In the 70s, if you were casting this like in the 70s, I could really see Michael Palin as James Potter. Sort of.
Hang on, he's supposed to be 17.
Well, they played schoolboys in Monty Python. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. If you're gonna go down that road with it, I suppose.
And you could have John Cleese back as Nearly Headless Nick, the ghost.
You could have him as Nearly Headless Nick before he became a ghost, and he's not as old as everyone thought. He's just regular head on his shoulders Nick.
That's what they call him. They call him fully intact Nick. And everyone says that's a weird name, isn't it?
And he's like, "Yeah, I'm setting something up for later.
This is going to pay off in the long term. Don't worry." So yeah, but you could also take advantage of the fact that the audience knows like things that are going to come up in the future, like and just sort of really shamelessly use that. Like you could have a bit where like Dumbledore, who was a teacher at Hogwarts at the time, so you could have Dumbledore as a character, and you could have him like he's telling them off because they're like acting up or whatever, and he says something like, "Oh, if you carry on like this, you'll all be dead by the time you're 40." Oh, and then we're like, "Oh, yeah, they actually were." Quite tragic. Yeah. There's another thing I sort of noted about Harry Potter is that a lot of the people like who work at Hogwarts and all that were all like involved in the first Wizarding War and all that kind of thing. And the majority of staff at the school are like have killed people and have like committed heinous acts, like perhaps in justifiable circumstances, but still that's got to have a sort of psychological weight on you. It's no wonder they're such a terrible institution.
They are quite bad when you think of like how much like death and they put their students through. It's like, oh right, yeah, the Triwizard Tournament is here. Oh yeah, by the way, you need to steal an egg from that massive fire-breathing dragon. Good luck.
What do you think? Have you got any ideas? Because Hagrid would have been there, right? Hagrid would have been like working on the grounds as well, like a young Hagrid. This is all it's about, is just like tying in these other characters and then just like build a plot around them. I don't know how.
No, I think you could just do it as like an episodic, like 70s sitcom. It'd be quite fun.
But there's not a lot of information about these guys when they're at school, so you could like actually genuinely play around with it quite a lot. I mean, I'm pitching it as a sitcom. I think it could actually be quite a good kids film. Like you could work with that completely. Like we were talking about the genuine like ideas for the prequels where we see the older generation and the parents and all that. It's got a lot. I think it's got a lot of potential actually.
Yeah.
Because I think you could do it as like an episodic show. Perhaps not as a proper sitcom like I'm saying here, but like as an episodic show where you just have these characters and set in the 70s. But I don't know if that makes any real difference at Hogwarts. 'Cause nothing ever changes, does it? Or...
No, it doesn't seem. No.
Yeah, I mean they still use candles and to light the place. So, yeah.
Maggie Smith never ages. She's just that same. She looks exactly the same, like in first film as the final film.
Yeah.
Shall I go next? So mine is called Harry Potter and the Truth, and we pick up immediately after Harry, Ron, and Hermione. The very end of the film. Well, before we skip forward 19 years to them as their older selves, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 ends with Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood on the bridge at Hogwarts, looking out to the distance. The battle's over. Voldemort's been killed. Whatever. So I want to pick up at the very end of that moment. The battle's over and Voldemort's been killed, so everyone's patting Harry on the back, and there's pure adulation all around, and McGonagall approaches him and asks if he'll have a word with her. As she's the new headmistress of Hogwarts, she wants to talk to Harry about a potential role for him at the school. So he follows her to her office and sits down in a chair. They exchange a few words when suddenly McGonagall stands up and casts a restraining spell. Harry can't move and is stuck to the chair. Into the room burst a pair of Death Eaters, and they hold some kind of crown. And they place the crown on Harry's head as he's screaming for help, but there's nothing he can do. McGonagall incants a spell Harry has never heard of before. Electrio Shockantum. And Harry feels an electrical charge pulse through his brain. He opens his eyes, and we see that he's actually in a very clinical but normal environment in the real world. McGonagall is no longer wearing her wizard robes, but a white coat, as are the Death Eaters. Harry wants to know what she's done, what curse this is. McGonagall slowly explains to Harry that everything he has believed since he turned 11 has been a product of his deranged mind. After the abuse put on him by his aunt and uncle and cousin, the young boy was driven mad inside the cupboard under the stairs. So it turns out that the letter to Wizarding School in the first film was just the very start of Harry's decline into complete insanity. Hogwarts only exists as Hogwarts Ward for Mentally Ill Minors. Now, McGonagall has been a psychiatrist for the duration, and gives rational explanations behind everything that Harry has interpreted as magical. So that at times he and his friends had been, let out, were just scheduled trips, supervised trips down to the local town. The summers that Harry spent with the Dursleys were just part of his treatment. Anyway, over the past 7 years...
what I like is that means that what I was complaining about before when they were, like, flushing themselves down the toilet, he was just stood in the toilet, like, flushing it.
Exactly.
I like there's in this home there's like some sort of mad shambling old man with a big beard called Dumbledore, Mr. Dumbledore.
A chocolate frog's just Freddo's.
Oh yes, they should be. Okay, so Harry has been at the clinic for 7 years now, and he's never gotten any better, but he's managed to convince.
By the way, Cadbury's, if you want to send us some Freddo's, I'll plug you again next week.
We're not above product placement. So Harry has managed to convince others in the ward of his delusions, which led to a rebellion in the Institute, meaning that McGonagall had to resort to electroshock, a practice that she is normally strongly against, as a last resort, given the destruction that has been wreaked. So the Battle of Hogwarts was basically the mentally ill kids getting out of their rooms and wreaking havoc around the place. Harry is overwhelmed with emotion. He's led out of the room. He sees the damage he has done, walking through the corridors. His fellow inmates are screaming at him and at the men in white coats, holding them back. Harry sees the devastation he's caused. McGonagall says that he has to stay in the hospital still for some time for rehabilitation. She apologises to him. She feels somewhat to blame given her controversial immersive treatment methods, in which she actually facilitated certain events, like the supposed death of Dumbledore, who is actually alive and well in the Institute. We can explain that when Harry first went to the clinic, there was a Dumbledore there who was the head of the place for 2 years. But when Harry came back after the summer, that guy had died. And rather than put pressure on his fragile little mind, they replaced him with another bearded man and just called him Dumbledore. And Harry didn't notice, so that's fine. Harry is taken back to G Ward. He weeps. Much of the rest of the film is dramatic scenes. We get all the cast back as the audience find out that nothing was quite what it seemed, and Harry must try and convince his classmates of the truth.
Was it immersive treatment at the end when Harry and Ron and everyone were old and the makeup was really shit? Was that just because it was some hospital orderlies that put a beard on him to make him think he was an old man?
I'm trying not to address that. That's the only flaw in my pitch, really. That the canon continues for another 19 years at the end of the film.
I think it's fine. They skipped ahead, made them think that he was really old, and snapped him out of it.
What I'm going for is... no, I won't spoil that. Sorry. Has everyone seen Shutter Island?
I had the same thought process of do I mention the similarity, or do we want to avoid spoiling that film for everyone?
Yeah, because that kind of spoils it for everyone, doesn't it?
To be fair, it is the most blatantly obvious twist I have ever seen in a film. It's so to the point that I think we saw it at the cinema together, did we?
Yes.
And I remember we came out of it thinking I think both of us were waiting for we're expecting that to be a red flag and for the real twist to be that no, actually it is all really happening. and it was this.
And Max von Sydow is a Nazi.
Yeah. And they were trying to convince him it was all in his head to throw him off the scent or something. But
so Harry leaves the Institute just a few times in this film under supervision to attend the trials of his aunt and uncle who are being prosecuted for the child cruelty offences against young Harry. Through scenes in which he talks with his Aunt Petunia, we learn that her hatred of her sister and of Harry was always genuine, but having seen the monster that she created, she says sorry to Harry, but Harry can't find it in his heart to forgive her. She's taken away some of the best years of his life. The Dursleys are punished accordingly by the court of law and are incarcerated. Time passes, the seasons come and go. We see Harry talk more to his inmates, we see the progression he makes in rehabilitating them, but at the cost of his own soul, as he is beat down time and time again by realising that the wonderful adventures he had were nothing more than a sick fantasy. Harry has stayed long enough to convince McGonagall that he has been fully rehabilitated. Ron and Hermione are the most damaged of all the inmates and are still adamant that Harry and they are wizards. He has one last touching scene with them.
This is a shared delusion, then.
Well, no, 'cause he managed to convince all the other inmates of his.
That's why he's the chosen
fantasy
one.
World.
Because he started it all. Yeah.
That's good. That's good reasoning there, Saul. I wish I'd thought of that. So Harry has one last touching scene with Ron and Hermione. They go to him. Remember, Harry. Remember the chocolate frogs. Remember Butterbeer. Remember the times we laughed in front of the fire and cast spells. Remember the basilisk. Remember Voldemort. Remember Lupin. Remember the goblins. Remember magic, Harry. Harry stands up and sighs. There's no such thing as magic. He turns and leaves. We cut to McGonagall stood in the window. She has a melancholy smile on her face as Harry is led away to freedom. Her job is done. The smile turns into a smirk, which turns to a giggle, a cackle. She pulls out a wand and sprinkles magic on herself to reveal that it's actually Ralph Fiennes in disguise. I mean, Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort.
Do you reckon, like, I know Voldemort was in Slytherin, but shouldn't he have been in Hufflepuff?
Why?
Because he's just a bit... He's not very good at what he does, is he? I mean,
Too cool to be.
he's played by a guy called Ralph.
You're doing a lot of retconning on behalf of Hufflepuff to make it out to be the better house than it is. And you sealed your own fate with that talking toadstool answer. Like, as soon as you clicked that, I was
so you're looking around the garden, Calvin, right? There's a tree with some like gold apples on it.
I'm gonna pick them apples and sell them. I'm going straight for those apples.
Right, the tree with gold apples.
I would have gone to the babbling.
There's some water and there's something under the water, and there's some mushrooms that are fucking talking. Like, as if you're not going to be like, wait, what? Fucking talking mushrooms? Like, of course you're gonna be right over there. Like, what's that about?
What am I going to do with them? Put them in a van and tour around?
Well, if you want to,
look at them? No, I'm going to go for the golden
apples.
apples.
And sure, if there's talking mushrooms there, then you're going to go over there and make sure they're not going to, like, you know, you might want to stamp on them so you can take the apples without anyone seeing. Like, they're the first thing you'd look at. I'm not saying I wouldn't go over and have some gold apples. I'm just, you know.
Why is everything about making money, Calvin? Calvin, you're a goblin. You've got to go work in the bank.
Anyway, I liked... what I like with that pitch is that it retroactively makes a lot of the complaints I have with the other films go away, because you can just brush aside. Well, because the bad wizards didn't stop themselves falling to their death, because it's just the delusions of a madman. That's why.
Yeah. It's the classic, it was all a dream ending.
Well, I actually got the idea from watching one of the bonus features on one of the Blu-rays, where it's J.K. Rowling talking with one of the screenwriters who adapted her works, and he was talking about like fan theories, and apparently one fan theory is that the entire adventure is just Harry's deranged mind, and that he's actually just been driven insane by being locked in a cupboard for his entire childhood.
What I like about it is that this Dr. McGonagall, she's used electric shock therapy and completely cured this person like that, like with like flicking a switch. Doesn't choose to use it on anyone else, and also chose not to use it for the last 7 years.
She's a controversial method.
I would have ended it with Ron and Hermione like doing the remember everything, and him like falling back into old ways, and then McGonagall's like, right, fire up the lobotomizer, and drills into Daniel Radcliffe's brain, and
wow.
and then Ron pulls out the sink and throws it through the window and runs away.
Right, I guess that leaves me then. So I don't suppose either of you have heard of Maya Mortal?
Maya Mortal?
It's either a Bond name or a porn star.
It's one of arguably the most infamous bit of fan fiction ever written.
About Harry Potter?
About anything, but it is about Harry Potter. It really is remarkable. It's one of these things where it's hotly contested as to whether or not it's like sincere or someone taking the piss, and I must say I only really properly... I was aware of it, but I only really started having a read of it leading up to this, and to me, it really does just seem so well crafted with, like, actual jokes that it couldn't possibly be real, but there's a lot of people who've, like, dug into the author, and the prevailing, like, theory is that the author account's persona online is far too... prolific, and I noticed that they were writing it with a friend as well, so I do wonder if maybe the friend was steering it into like silly places, because sometimes it's like credited special thanks to them, sometimes it isn't, and it's not quite as insane. But anyway, it's written by a teenage girl, allegedly, and it's just the most hilarious load of shit. And it's set in Hogwarts during the events of Harry Potter. It's following a different student. And I figured that, you know, anything we do is going to be fan fiction anyway, so we might as well just draw from the wells of the most popular, the most infamous bit of fan fiction going, and just make a straight adaptation of it. So, although the canon starts to get iffy as the thing progresses and rewrites the books in ways that My understanding is they'd only seen the films when they were writing it. They hadn't actually read the books, so there's a lot of misunderstanding. I'm just going to read you chapter 1 to give you this gets us into iffy copyright territory, but like,
is fan fiction copyright?
well, no one knows who wrote it.
I think we're technically reviewing it.
Yeah, we are. so it's fine. If someone can prove that they wrote it, then we'll have cracked the internet's like it's a big mystery as to like who the actual author is. So
it's a deliberate parody.
No, like I say, it's hotly contested. Most people believe that it is sincere attempt at fan fiction from a teenage girl, but some people believe it's too funny and that it must be self-aware. But like I say, it's impossible to ascertain either way. Let's just say it is for real, for the sake of there being some magic left in the world. After your pitch, Calvin.
Well, come on then. Don't stop burying the lead. We need to hear this stuff that way, right?
Chapter 1. Author note. Special fangs. Get it? 'Cause I'm gothic. To my GF. Ooh, not in that way. Raven Bloody Tears 666 for helping me with the story and spelling. You rock. Justin, you're
Spelling.
The spelling.
Justin, you're the love of my depressing life. You rock too. MCR, I believe that's My Chemical Romance. MCR rocks. Okay, so that's the author note. Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way, and I have long, ebony black hair. That's how I got my name. With purple streaks and red tips that reaches my mid-back and icy blue eyes like limpid tears. And a lot of people tell me I look like Amy Lee. Author note, if you don't know who she is, then get the hell out of here. bracket.
I don't know who she is.
I believe she's the lead singer of Evanescence. I'm not related to Gerard Way, but I wish I was because he's a major fucking hottie.
Who is Gerard Way?
I don't know, but just to interject, I like that she wants to be related to someone that she's attracted to. I'm a vampire, but my teeth are straight and white. I've pale white skin. I'm also a witch, and I go to a magic school called Hogwarts in England, where I'm in the 7th year. I'm 17.
Point of order. I believe Hogwarts is in Scotland.
Yeah.
I don't want to start nitpicking because I feel like that's gonna. But, you know.
I'm a goth, in case you couldn't tell, and I wear mostly black. I love Hot Topic, and I buy all my clothes from there. For example, today I was wearing a black corset with matching lace around it and a black leather miniskirt, pink fishnets, and black combat boots. I was wearing black lipstick, white foundation, black eyeliner, and red eyeshadow. I was walking outside Hogwarts. It was snowing and raining, so there was no sun, which I was very happy about. A lot of preps stared at me. I put up my middle finger at them. Hey, Ebony, shouted a voice. I looked up. It was Draco Malfoy. What's up, Draco? I asked. Nothing, he said shyly. But then I heard my friends call me and I had to go away. End of chapter 1. Author note. Is it good? Please tell me, Fangs. I'm going to do chapter 2 for you as well because they're relatively short.
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
No, it's not good.
Was this all published at once, or was this in like installments?
No. It was an ongoing thing over a long period of time, serialized chapter at a time.
I mean, that felt very genuine to me. That is just the sort of shite that 15-year-old girls would come up with.
So, chapter 2, author note. Thanks to Bloody Tears 666 for helping me with that chapter. BTW prep, stop flaming my story, okay?
Stop flaming my story.
My understanding is she received a lot of online abuse. I say she, could be a he. The next day, I woke up in my bedroom. It was snowing and raining again. I opened the door of my coffin and drank some blood from the bottle I had. My coffin was black ebony, and inside it was hot pink velvet with black lace on the ends. I got out of my coffin and took off my giant MCR t-shirt, which I used for pyjamas. Instead, I put on a black leather dress, a pentagram necklace, combat boots, and black fishnets on. I put on 4 pairs of earrings in my pierced ears and put my hair in a kind of messy bun. My friend Willow, author note, Raven, this is you, woke up and then grinned at me. She flipped her long waist-length raven black hair with pink streaks and opened her forest green eyes. She put on her Marilyn Manson t-shirt with a black mini, fishnets, and pointy high-heeled boots. We put on our makeup, black lipstick, white foundation, and black eyeliner. OMFG, I saw you talking to Draco Malfoy yesterday, she said excitedly. Yeah, so? I said, blushing. Do you like Draco? She asked, as we went out of the Slytherin common room and into the Great Hall. No, I so fucking don't, I shouted. Yeah, right, she exclaimed. Just then, Draco walked up to me. Hi, he said. Hi, I replied, flirtily. Guess what, he said.
Hi.
What, I asked. Well, Good Charlotte are having a concert in Hogsmeade, he told me. Oh my fucking god, I screamed. I love GC. They are my favourite bands beside MCR. Well, do you want to go with me, he asked. I gasped. That's the end of chapter 2.
Oh, what a cliffhanger.
I know. But it really is, like, it's fascinating. Like, I read up to about chapter 12, and it's like, basically she meets Harry Potter, but he's called Vampire. That's his nickname now. Harry Vampire Potter. Loads of weird sex scenes start kicking off with Draco. I'm going to read you the first sex scene. This is from chapter 4.
Oh, it doesn't take long.
So they've just been to see Good Charlotte.
GC?
Yeah, GC, the
OMFG,
second best band after
band
MCR.
The kids do like to abbreviate, don't they?
So, Draco leaned in, extra close, and I looked into his gothic red eyes, brackets, he was wearing colour contacts, which revealed so much depressing sorrow and evilness. And then suddenly I didn't feel mad anymore. And then, suddenly, just as Draco kissed me passionately, Draco climbed on top of me, and we started to make out keenly against a tree.
Keenly?
He took off my... Keenly. He took of my top, and I took of his clothes. I even took of my bra. Then he put his thingy into my you-know-what.
Oh
and
my
did it for the first time. Oh, I screamed. I was beginning to get an orgasm. We started to kiss everywhere and... We started to kiss everywhere, and my pale body became all warm. And then... What the hell are you doing, you motherfuckers? It was Dumbledore.
Oh, no.
Really
so
nailed
that's...
Dumbledore's character with that language.
Yeah. Well, she actually started to receive loads of criticism for how she was writing Dumbledore. So her response is he's got a headache, and she started writing in that he's got a headache, and that's why he's so angry. And she starts toning it down as it goes off, but she's just not very good. But yeah, basically she enters into this relationship with Draco, and then when she's having sex with him, she notices that he's got a tattoo of Harry Potter in like a love heart that she hadn't noticed before. And she gets really angry. She shouts, "You bastard." He says, no, but you don't understand. And she says, "No, you fucking idiot. You probably have AIDS anyway," and gets angry. Now, initially I just thought that she was angry that he's, like, gay, but it's actually, like, a really like, bisexual guys are the hottest kind of attitude taken throughout. And what it's meant to be is that he got the tattoo, like, she thinks that he's cheated on her with Harry Potter and then gone out and got the tattoo after, like... but what actually happened is he got the tattoo before and she just didn't realise, and it's fine. And anyway, there's a scene where she's in her room, like, getting changed or something, and she's naked, and then she looks out the window and it's Professor Snape and Lupin masticating watching her in a tree.
Oh,
Masticating?
my.
Masticating.
Wait, what?
just
masticating.
They're just having a little picnic in the tree.
Yeah, frequently referred to as Professor Snap. In fact, so I'm gonna read you this scene because it's so wonderful. This is chapter 11.
How many chapters are there? Just out of
Oh, there's 44, but I won't go.
They're only half a page long. It's not.
Yeah. Anyway, I started crying tears of blood, and then I slit both of my wrists.
Oof.
They got all over my clothes, so I took them off and jumped into the bath angrily while I put on a Linkin Park song at full volume. I grabbed a stake and almost stuck it into my heart to commit suicide. I was so fucking depressed. I got out of the bathtub and put on a black low-cut dress with lace all over it, sandly. I don't know what sandly means. I put on black high heels with pink metal stuff on the ends and 6 pairs of skull earrings. I couldn't fucking believe it. Then I looked out of the window and screamed. Snap was spying on me, and he was taking a videotape of me, and Lupin was masticating to it. They were sitting on their broomsticks. Ooh, you fucking pervs! Stop looking at me naked! Are you pedos or what? I screamed, putting on a black towel with a picture of Marilyn Manson on it. Suddenly, Vampire ran in. Abracadabra, he yelled at Snape and Lupin, pointing his womb. I took my gun and shot Snape and Lupin a gazillion times, and they both started screaming, and the camera broke. Suddenly, Dumbledore ran in. Ebony... Ebony, it has been revealed that someone has... No! He shouted, looking at Snape and Lupin, and then he waved his hand, and suddenly... Hagrid ran outside on his broom and said, everyone, we need to talk. What do you know, Hagrid? You're just a little Hogwarts student. I may be a Hogwarts student, Hagrid paused angrily, but I'm also a Satanist. And I'll leave it there, but there is more.
What? My God.
Why is Hagrid a student?
Again, I think it's just shit continuity, but some believe it's just meant to be that she's like retconned it so that he's like to make it like,
you know, like how there was that guy who I think it was it Axe Cop. There was that guy who like he had his like little brother make up stories and then he would like draw them in like beautiful comics. I would love it if Hollywood just took this and made it and God. Just like you have like Alan Rickman and Warwick Davis on a broomstick and Warwick Davis is just wanking away as Professor Lupin. Like I would love to see that.
That's it exactly. Like it's something I've said before. Like I would love to see like outsider art facilitated in that way. Just like for me, it was always Christian Weston Chandler, who I recommend people look up online and research into. But I would love to see, you know, him given $5 million to make a film. Yes. And like, you know, on the proviso that you know, he can't spend it on bloody Transformers toys or whatever. It can only be spent on the film. And just see what he comes out with. Like you say, professionally made, professionally shot and edited and acted, but just written by a fucking maniac. Because it would be fascinating. And that's essentially my pitch. You get the original creative team back on board as much as possible, minus J.K. Rowling, and you just use the page as it's written.
You'd probably have to like put J.K. Rowling in a trunk and like drop her into the ocean to stop her from like opposing this.
It's worth reading, but it does just reach like it gets crazy. Apparently, I haven't read this far, but apparently it gets to a point where Marty McFly from Back to the Future cameos. What? And then his DeLorean turns into an iPod, and the whole story is like they go back in time or something to stop Voldemort before he's like can turn into Satan or something. And I don't think it ever got finished. I think the last chapter was uploaded with an author note saying something about how they were traveling from Dubya, which they believe was meant to be Dubai, and they weren't going to have like internet access for a while, and that was the last of it.
I would love to see it.
Have you ever read fan fiction out of interest?
No.
Not in any great depth, no.
It is so sad, isn't it? Like,
I'm very aware of
so
it.
Lame. Although, having said everything I've just said, that is essentially what this podcast is, so maybe I should take it back.
That's a good point.
But I mean, it's interesting when you start like looking into it. There's no real difference between fan fiction and, like, for example, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Other than one's like officially sanctioned, it's still like some new person's come on board and written it. And
Well, yeah, but it's not just anyone can do it. It's that person has been chosen.
well, yeah, but when do you draw the line? Because
Well, somewhere between 14-year-old girl
well, no, but the example that
and established film director.
I draw the line at copyright law.
yeah, but then the example that comes to mind there is that Day of the Dead, the George Romero film, the official sequel to that, based on who actually owns the rights to the franchise, is the worst film I've ever seen. That's not hyperbole. It is the worst film I've ever seen. Day of the Dead 2 Contagium, which was a straight-to-video thing thrown together by a knobhead who basically snapped up the rights to the film Day of the Dead. And by extension, George Romero's film Land of the Dead is an unofficial sequel in legal terms. But yeah, I would consider the Day of the Dead 2 to be like unofficial bollocks that, you know, might as well be fan fiction, whereas George Romero's film is, you know, the true continuation, regardless of what you think of it. Legalities can get into, you know, cloudy areas of... It's difficult to know quite where to draw the line sometimes, and it's interesting how... I mean, obviously, you know, this My Immortal is one end of the spectrum, but yeah. Well, there you go. That's Harry Potter. We yeah. See you next time.
Well, no matter what you think of it, Harry Potter is and long will be an institution of the entertainment world. Just like this podcast. Make sure your friends know you were here in the early days by bombarding them with our episodes until they finally give in and listen. You can find them by searching for Diminishing Returns on SoundCloud or YouTube. The next chapter from the Harry Potter universe can be seen in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which is out this week. And join us next week as we tackle another major film institution. Disney won't know what hit it, as Frozen gets the Diminishing Returns treatment. Thanks for listening.